So hello everyone, and welcome back to those who attended the first and second sessions earlier today. And for those who just went online, welcome to the second edition of the webinar, What Makes Art Powerful, hosted by Wei-Ling Gallery. I'm Amanda and I'll be moderating today's talk. And as the title says, this webinar is meant to spark a conversation on how art holds the power of change, whether inward or outward, and how is art important to our lives? Can we actually live without art? So by inviting panelists who explore different art forms, we'd like to hear their personal stories of struggles and how art has helped them go through these challenges. For our first edition in May, we have invited two artists and a filmmaker, and today we are pleased to have a dancer, an artist, and a writer share their thoughts with us. Using art, whether it's dance, installation, film, or writing, not only that they gained a better understanding of themselves and their surroundings, but their works have also inspired and empowered others. In case you missed our two previous sessions this morning, first we spoke to Rahmidia Larasati on how she revisited memories of the past and learned to accept all the trauma that she had in life through dance. And secondly, we also spoke to Anida Yu Ali on how she explored the questions of displacement and otherness through the projects that intersect visual and performing arts. Now, for our last but not least session for today's webinar, I would like to welcome author Litt Woon onto the screen, please. While waiting, I'd also like to take this chance to thank Norla, Norwegian literature abroad, for supporting the participation of Litt Woon in this webinar. Okay, hello. Hi, Litt Woon.
Hi.
Welcome online. We're really happy to have you with us today. We've been wanting to do this since the lockdown in May, and finally we have the chance to actually hold this webinar with Litt Woon. So Litt Woon is currently living and working in Oslo as an anthropologist and certified mushroom expert. But she is also the author of the book, The Way Through the Woods, Mushroom and Morning, which she will be speaking about today. So I have the book here with me. Yeah. I hope that you've had the chance to read her book, but in case you have not, it's really easy. You just need to go to one of the links shown on the chat box, and you can just purchase this book online. Okay, so basically for today, Litt Woon will be talking about this book, a little bit of introduction on how she came to Norway and started, mushroom hunting and writing this book. So Litt Woon went to Norway in her youth as an exchange student. There she met and later married Eyolf Olsen, who's Norwegian, and decided to make Norway her home. So following Litt Woon's sudden loss of her beloved husband, she decided to give mushroom hunting a try. It says here that you've tried everything, but then finally you decided mushroom hunting would be, the solution. And sure enough, she did find peace through mushroom, which she documented. She toyed around with this idea of documenting her experience through writing, and soon writing itself served as a meditative process for her to move on. So this book was published in 2017 and has been translated and distributed to over a dozen countries. So the New York Times even described it as moving and unexpected, funny. And if you have not had the opportunity to read it, please feel free to click on one of the links below. Without waiting any further, let's just hear from the author herself. She's here right now, and Litt Woon will be sharing her story on how mushroom hunting and writing brought her the strength to deal with loss and to find herself again. She will also be reading a few parts of the books. So yeah, it's going to be very exciting. And at any point you have any question, please feel free to type it in the question box shown on your screens. At the end of the sharing session, I will read out these questions to Litt Woon for Litt Woon to answer. Okay, please, Litt Woon, off my camera and I'll let you speak.
Thank you very much, Amanda and Wei-Ling Gallery for having me, and thank you again to NOLA, Norwegian Literature Abroad, for supporting this event. Yeah, you asked a huge question, Amanda. How art can heal, how art can be powerful. So not just healing oneself, but also maybe giving something to others. I certainly did not think of all this when I wrote my book. So just to backtrack a bit, for those of you who do not know my book or my work, I was born in Malaysia, came to Norway, 18 years old, exchange student, met my husband, married him, and we're together for over 30 years, and suddenly one day he dies. And my life is in pieces, and it took me a long time to just handle it. And as Amanda mentioned, I did many different things. I went to a bereavement group. I actually was just desperate to find some form of peace. And by chance, I stumbled on mushrooms, and lo and behold, now I have this book and I'm talking to all of you. So very briefly, this book, The Way Through the Woods, is about two journeys, an outer journey and an inner journey. The outer journey is my discovery of the kingdom of fungi, and of the people who hunt for mushrooms, the mushroom hunters. I'm an anthropologist, so I cannot help myself. I meet a new group, a new culture, a new tribe. My eyes are open and I'm sort of like all ears. So the outer journey about this kingdom, and it is its own kingdom. It is, mushrooms are not plants, and mushrooms are not animals. So mushrooms are its own kingdom. So the outer journey, the kingdom of fungi and the mushroom hunters, and the inner journey, my own journey in this landscape of grief. So this book is about how these two journeys are intertwined, and how one feeds the other, and there's a beginning and an end in both stories, and there's movement, and in the sense that in the mushroom story, I start by being a mushroom novice, asking all the basic questions everyone who does not know anything about mushroom asks. And in a way, these questions form like the skeleton of the book. I start by being this novice, and I end up by taking this mushroom exam that we have in Norway, and I'm now a mushroom inspector. I can talk about it later if anybody's interested. And then the journey, the grief journey, where I start, I'm completely in this black hole, completely lost, and how mushrooms showed me a way out of this tunnel of grief. And basically, to sum up, so in the beginning, the way the mushrooms show me the way out of grief is, number one, it gave me pleasure. Number two, it gave me purpose, because when death strikes, it can feel very meaningless. Nothing is important anymore. So mushrooms gave me purpose, in the sense that I decided I wanted to take this exam. I studied for the exam. I got to know people. And the third way mushrooms are important for me, it gave me a new sense of myself, a new pride in a new identity. So the three P's: pleasure, purpose, and pride. But anyway, let me start by reading you a short passage from the book. A very famous psychologist in Norway calls this book a love story, but actually this is a love story where my husband dies on page 1. So I will start with death. This is the story of a journey which started on the day my life was turned upside down, the day when Aof went to work and didn't come home. He never came back. Life as I'd known it was gone in that instant. The world would never be the same again. I was devastated. The pain of my loss was all that was left of him. It tore me apart, but I had no wish to dull the agony with painkillers. I wanted to suffer every ounce of the torment, raw. It was confirmation that he had lived, that he had been my husband. I did not want that to be gone as well. I was in free fall. I who had always been in command and in control, I who liked to have a firm grip on things. My lodestar was gone. I found myself in unknown territory, a reluctant wanderer in a strange land. Visibility was poor, and I had neither map nor compass. Which way was up? Which way was down? From which corner should I start walking? Where should I set my foot? There was nothing but blackness. To my surprise, I chanced upon the answers to these questions where I least expected them. The weather was damp, and there was a light drizzle in the air, and the dead leaves that had fallen from the tall, venerable trees in Oslo's botanical gardens were starting to molder. There was no doubt that the warm days of summer were over, and a colder season was starting to encroach on our lives. Someone had told me about this course, and I'd signed up for it without giving it too much thought. It was something Aof and I had talked about doing, but never got around to. So one autumn dark evening, I presented myself, not expecting too much, in the basement of the Natural History Museum at the University of Oslo. I needed to watch my step. I had already managed to break an ankle just after Aof's funeral. The fear of falling remained with me long after the accident. I had been told that it takes a while for a broken ankle to heal, but whether a broken heart could ever be whole again, and if so, how long that might take, no one could tell me. Grief grinds slowly. The course of bereavement does not run smooth. It progresses in fits and starts, takes unforeseeable turns. If anyone had told me that mushrooms would be my lifeline, the thing that would help me back onto my feet and quite literally back onto life's track, I would have rolled my eyes. What had mushrooms to do with mourning? So this is how the book starts. And in a way, that is the question I answer in the course of the book. And so this book is about death, but actually you could take it one step sort of more abstract and talk about loss, because it is a book about loss. And you can lose many things. And I think when you talk about loss, you know, it can resonate with a lot more people, even though death is something which, you know, would resonate with many people too. I mean, with all of us, death is part of life. But loss, definitely, you know, you can lose a job, you can lose your health. Some people, you know, you lose your family through a divorce. Some people are so unfortunate, they lose their country, become refugees. So you can lose many things which are important for your identity, for the way you define yourself. So the way out of loss, including death, is, I think, a redefinition of identity. You know, who am I now? Who am I now? I am when Aof is dead, and he's, you know, he's not here to be my husband anymore. So who am I now? You know, I've defined myself so closely to him in all these years. And it takes time. And if you have time, you know, we can talk about that later. And I think one of the reasons why it takes time is because of the because of the way society reacts to death. It's also interesting, you know, since I come from Malaysia, you know, in Malaysia we have some rituals. In Norway, we also have rituals, different ones, and how these affect the individual's, you know, processing of death and loss, bereavement. But anyway, so it's a book about loss and the way out of it. And for me, as I indicated in the beginning, stumbling upon joy, upon pleasure was central, because, you know, I had also done yoga, meditation, everything else everyone told me to do, but it was mushrooms that I got hooked on. And I think I will now read you why it became mushrooms. Since I became bitten by the mushroom bug, I've discovered an invisible parallel world at my feet, one with its own unruly logic and wayward vitality, a magical world which I would have once walked straight past, unwitting. Sometimes, when I find mushrooms, time seems to stand still. I experience both flow and zen, the sense of gratification and of being at one with the universe bring both inner contentment and happiness. At such moments, only one thing matters: to be exactly where I am and do exactly what I'm doing. At such moments, I don't think about what I'm going to have for dinner or what people think about my hairstyle. Gathering mushrooms is both a tactile and sensory experience. First, you feel the degree of resistance in the mushroom. Some stubborn fungi dig in their heels, others are ready to leave the forest and come home with us if you merely smile sweetly at them. And I love the moment when, after a little careful grubbing about, I finally have my golden prize in my hand. And to me, it feels almost like scraping my way to the winning number on a scratch card, a cheap thrill in more sense than one. One thing is the sense of mastery that comes with more knowledge and more practice in exploring a forest. Something else, and quite unexpected, is the feeling of euphoria. My heart leapt the first time I found a delicious edible mushroom on my own. Was this happiness? It was staggering to actually feel an emotion I thought had gone for good when Ayov died. It was like being given an intravenous shot of multivitamins. What a sensation. Elation bubbled out of every cell in my body. All at once, a slender, golden beam of light pierced my soul. Was it possible to feel a delight so scintillatingly clear when everything seemed so vague and hopeless? Find one mushroom, and there's a good chance you will find another nearby. The thrill of discovery is cumulative. One mushroom, one delight. Two mushrooms, double delight. So I think you can understand how I got hooked on mushrooms. And even though I didn't know where mushrooms were going to take me, where this mushroom path was leading to, I mean, when everything is dark, and this light falls on the mushroom and it brings you joy, this was a no-brainer. I just had to follow this path. And so the first way in which mushrooms and morning are connected for me is joy, pleasure. And it led to this new awakening in a way. Because when Aof died, I felt almost like, you know, my whole life was cotton wool, you know. It was like my senses were not working. I didn't hear what people were saying. I, you know, didn't see properly. I forgot stuff. You know, food tasted like paper. You lose weight. So all your senses are just off. And mushroom identification, you really have to use your senses. You know, your sense of sight, you know, look at the colors. That's the way you find mushrooms when you go into a forest. You know, everything is green, and then you just have take a quick overview, and something maybe just lights up, you know, something a different color, and then you go there and check it out. Of course, sometimes it's just a leaf, but that's what I do anyway, because you need to have this you know, this long distance view, panoramic view, and then you need to go deep, you know, look down at your feet, because they could be hiding there below some leaves. So you need to use your senses, even your sense of hearing. I write about how, you know, you can recognize, there's one mushroom you can recognize by the way it pops. You need to read the book. I'm not going to tell you anything more about that. But the most important sense when you're mushroom hunting is the sense of smell. And this was very difficult for me, not only because I was grieving, but because, as I discovered, you know, we have very few words for particular smells. You'd say it smells like ink, or it smells like tea. It always smells like something else. There's no word for that smell. Very few anyway that I can think of. So anyway, mushrooms have different aromas, different smells, and some of them very distinct ones. It's almost like a fingerprint. So when you pick up a mushroom, you know, you look at it, there are many different characteristics in the mushroom, and you so you check them, you know. So does it have, you know, gills? Does it have a ring? Does it have, you know, what color is it? What is it? What's the texture? So if you get, like, you know, your characteristics right, then you know, oh, this is that mushroom. But one of the characteristics is smell. So if you when you pick up a mushroom from the forest, a wild mushroom, you always turn it upside down, and you bring the cap to your nose, and you sniff at it. And anyway, I found this very difficult, and so there's a whole chapter in the book about smell, and I think I might have time just to read this one little story about smell. The paths were narrow and dry. My new acquaintance B and I had wandered this way and that without really knowing where we were going. Behind us, we left a little cloud of dust, like in cowboy films, a bad sign if it's not Indians but mushrooms you're after. The sunlight was bright, harsh. Had there been no rain here on the island earlier in that day, when it had rained on the mainland? Neither of us knew where best to start looking. While B had cranked the handle on the cable ferry to carry us across the narrow strait, we had got talking to some cheery islanders who eyed our empty but hopeful mushroom baskets curiously. No, nobody had ever found mushrooms on this island, we were told. But we chose to carry on, not to be put off by doubtful natives. Suddenly, an opening appeared, leading into a dim, mysterious-looking grove. Should we go that way? The forest path was bare and stony, and yet I had the feeling that it could nonetheless be promising. The forest floor might have retained some of the moisture from the recent rainfall. In any case, it was good to get out of the sun and into the grove's shady embrace. It took a while for our eyes to adjust. to the cool woodland light. We were bathed in the dancing, dappled patchwork of light, sunlight and shade, and it would have been easy to give in to the temptation to just potter about, but I was on a mission, so I began to scan the terrain. It wasn't long before my newly trained eye fell upon a mushroom, the Miller mushroom. A delicacy. I could almost hear my teacher's voice. Lead white caps, decurrent gills which can be pink tinged, and not least, a rather mealy odor. A truly yummy mushroom with some nasty lookalikes. So you really have to know how to tell one from the other. Smell this, I said brightly, turning the mushroom upside down and presenting the pale underside to him. He straightened up, took a big sniff of the gills, and then he went quiet. What do you smell? I asked eagerly, a bit impatiently. I was keen to know whether B could detect the odor of wet flour. But I'd rather not say, he said, going rather pink. He didn't seem to know where to look or what to do with the mushroom. A few long minutes passed. B is red-haired and pale-skinned, and it was hard for him to hide the fact that he was blushing. Oh dear, I had put both of us in an awkward position. There I was, thinking that the answer would be easy and obvious and possibly help to stimulate a dawning interest in mushrooms. I had donned my cunning mushroom evangelist hat that day. The plan had been not to force fungi on him, but to let him discover them for himself as they showed up upon our way. We didn't know each other well enough for him to feel comfortable about telling me what the mushroom had actually smelled like to him, and I didn't delve deeper. I had no wish to render the situation even more awkward, but whatever it was, it certainly wasn't wet flour. Yes. So just a little story about the sense of smell and how I needed to develop both a vocabulary and a way to identify different smells, and to get to know this very technical jargon in a way. Well, but finally, I got my exam, passed my exam, I became a mushroom inspector, which in Norway means that you get to check other people's mushroom baskets when they come out of the forest. It is a free service that the Mushroom Society does to help, to encourage people to pick more wild mushrooms so that they can go home and feel safe that whatever they've picked is edible. So mushrooms showed me a way out of the forest, gave me a new community, took me to places I'd never been before, got me out of the house and into nature, which I was not so interested in before. I'm Malaysian, but I love it now, and always, say yes if anybody wants to go. And after a while, I thought that I was telling people about these, my mushroom adventures, and I thought maybe I could write a sort of anthropological, personal, quirky book about mushrooms and my journey, my mushroom journey. And I got a grant to do that book, and I started writing it. And but all the time, I couldn't work out how to fit my husband into the book because it was a mushroom book. But in my mind, it was his death that led me to mushrooms. And I needed to acknowledge that in some way, I felt. And it was only when I thought, okay, I will write, I'll just write, a line or two about, not about him, but about losing him and how this led me to the mushrooms. And when I started writing that line, I knew immediately this book is not just a mushroom book. it's a book about mourning too. So that's how I ended up with The Way Through the Woods of Mushrooms and Mourning. And this book has now changed my life completely, because now I'm a full-time writer, and yeah, and I'm working on my second book. So thank you very much for listening in, and if you have any questions, I'll be more than happy to answer them for you.
Thank you so much, Litt Woon, for sharing. Thank you so much. I'm sure everyone enjoyed the reading as much as I do. You know, it's really interesting to know that mushroom hunting really showed you out of the grief of losing your husband, and you know, to really find those 3 P's: pleasure, purpose, and pride. I find that very interesting. And the fact that you stumbled upon joy in mushroom hunting, which is basically, well, joy itself is the key to moving on, actually. And the fact that mushroom hunting itself actually, in the end, became an art. You know, the act of mushroom hunting. You know, you mentioned about how you use your senses to hunt these mushrooms, and I guess that's what art is about, right? It's really about, yeah, trusting your senses, waking up your senses again. Yeah, because you did mention how you lost them, you lost these senses, and then you found them again through the act of mushroom hunting. And I guess the question is really more to like the act of writing itself after the mushroom hunting. Yeah, writing or literature, and the fact that you decided that it will be your full-time career now. You know, you're already writing your second book. How did writing actually serve you moving on and accepting?
I like what you said about, just to go back a bit, I like what you said about trusting your senses, because in a way, it is trusting your senses, for me in this case, that in a way mark this new person, mark this new identity, sense something new, right? And of course, when you sense something new and you can trust it and you can put a name on it, you know, you become a different person, because that old me did not know this, that old me could not feel this or could trust this. Anyway, so that was just my little comment to your thing about trusting, not just waking up the senses, but trusting them, and in trusting them become a new person in a way. But writing, yeah. So, you know, everybody asks me, you know, if writing was therapeutic and if that was why I wrote. Well, definitely was not why I wrote. I just wrote because I felt I wanted to tell this story. But was it therapeutic? Yes, it was. I mean, definitely, because basically when you are sort of like defining a new identity, what you do is you have to have a new narrative. Who am I? You know, you have to, a new narrative. So here I am writing a book. It is a narrative, you know, and you have to organize your thoughts. Definitely when you're writing a book, and definitely when you are, even if you're not writing a book and you are, you know, creating this new narrative about yourself, you have to sort of keep telling it, you know, retell and retell. That's why a lot of people you meet who are grieving will tell and retell the story of their loss, as a way of sort of like many things. I think it's sort of like just to get used to the fact that this person is not coming back anymore, you know, just to keep on telling and to tell the story. And in a way, when you retell, you sort of you put some things in their place, you know, and it's a way of arranging things, right? A way of arranging things. That's what narration is. So definitely when you're writing a book, you have to put things in their place, right? So it is therapeutic. It functioned like that for me. I'm not saying it would be like that for everybody, but it functioned that way for me. And just to say a word about this therapy, I mean, it could have been something else, but for me it was mushrooms. So I think anybody, if you want to talk about, you know, how this could inspire some other people, as you said in the beginning, you just have to find your own mushroom. You know, everybody, you are you are in, you know, you are at a loss, you have suffered a loss, you have to find your way out. In a way, you have to sort of do something you have not done before, or you do something you've done before, but in a new way, or, you know, something to get you out of this rut, you know. But the interesting thing is, when I've been going around and I've traveled a lot with this book, to book festivals, to book launches, there's always somebody who would ask a new question that I have not thought of before. So in a way, it's not just writing that book, which has already been published, but it's also, it's an ongoing process. So the therapeutic effect is ongoing. You know, in the book, I do not say when my husband died, and he was very conscious. So I can tell you that, I mean, he died 10 years ago, and 10 years is a long time, is a short time, depending on how you look at it. The book is about acute grief. I don't grieve for him in that way today, otherwise I wouldn't be able to function. So grief has many faces, many forms, many stages. Somebody asks me a new question and I said, it helps to put something in a new place, or put something, you know, in place again. Yeah, so it's an ongoing process. Yeah.
Yeah, I like the fact that, you know, it's not about the chronology or, like, you know, a moment in time that you're focusing on, but it's more of the process itself. The idea that grief has a process, and that moving on to is a process, it's an ongoing process. Yeah. So yeah. Well, I guess that ends our discussion for today. Do you have any last words for your readers? You know, any any message that you would like to say to your readers?
Well, I'm just so thankful for my readers, and I know that people come to the book from very different angles. Some because of mushroom, some because of mourning, some because of neither, because they've read a review somewhere. It's a storybook, so anybody not interested in mushrooms or mourning can read that and get something out of it, I think. But basically, the UK version, which is the one that is on sale in Malaysia, it follows the Norwegian original, in the sense that there are two colors for the two stories, two fonts.
Yeah, I noticed that.
Yes, and so you can sort of like pick and choose what you want to read, in which, you know, so you can just read one story. You know, one story is in green and the other one is in black. Yeah. Little cute little illustrations.
Yeah. So green and black. Yeah.
Okay. So people can read it whatever way they want, and basically I'm on all social media platforms, so people reach out, you know, I'm happy to chat, you know. So yeah, thank you. Yeah,
thank you so much once again for being here, Litt Woon, and thanks everyone for attending the webinar. So that's the end of our webinar today on what makes art powerful. I hope, you know, you gained something out of it, and yeah, we'll see you on our next edition. Thank you. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.